The Shaw family mansion always felt colder on meeting days. Maybe it was the marble floors, or the way voices echoed off high ceilings, or just the icy stares from relatives who saw me as nothing more than a disappointment. Today was especially frigid. I adjusted my simple black dress, a stark contrast to my cousin's designer labels, and took my usual seat at the massive oak table. Last row, far corner. The designated spot for the family's problem child. Olivia. Aunt Margaret's voice dripped with false concern. So glad you could join us. I nodded politely, watching as the room filled with the Shaw family hierarchy. Uncle Robert, the self-appointed patriarch since my father's death. His wife Margaret, forever playing the concerned aunt while wielding gossip like a weapon. Their children, James and Katherine, groomed from birth to take over the family business. And of course, my mother, Victoria Shaw, who'd spent the last 15 years trying to erase any trace of my father from my personality. Now that everyone's here, Uncle Robert began, standing at the head of the table. We need to discuss some concerning matters. I knew what was coming. I'd overheard the whispers, seen the worried glances, noticed how they'd been monitoring my movements more closely lately. Olivia. He turned to me, his voice carrying that particular tone reserved for difficult children. We've been reviewing your recent activities. Of course they had. The Shaw family specialty. Surveillance disguised as care. Your spending patterns are concerning, he continued. Multiple large transfers, substantial stock purchases, property investments in areas we don't approve of. I kept my face neutral, even as I felt my pulse quicken. They've been watching my accounts. Probably had someone at the bank feeding them information. Classic Shaw tactics. We're worried about you, dear, Aunt Margaret chimed in. These risky investments, these questionable business decisions, it's not appropriate for someone of your limited experience. Katherine, my cousin, barely concealed her smirk. We just want to protect you from yourself. Liv. Protect me. The same excuse they'd used when they tried to stop me from going to business school. When they blocked my attempt to work at a competing firm. When they insisted I take a safe position in their company's HR department. The family has decided, Uncle Robert declared, that it's best to put you on a monthly allowance. A reasonable sum, of course. But all major financial decisions will need to be approved by the family council. I'm 28 years old, I said quietly. I don't need an allowance. Don't be difficult, Olivia, my mother snapped. This is for your own good. You're too much like your father, always chasing wild schemes, never thinking things through. The mention of my father sent a familiar ache through my chest. Alexander Shaw, the black sheep who dared to challenge the family's conservative investment approach. Who'd seen opportunities where they saw risks, who'd died in a car accident when I was 13, leaving me alone in this pit of vipers. Your father's reckless decisions almost bankrupted this family, Uncle Robert reminded me. We won't let history repeat itself. I opened my laptop slowly, deliberately. Before you make any decisions about my financial capabilities, maybe you should look at something. Olivia, my mother warned, but I was already turning the screen around. The first page showed a simple investment portfolio. Blue chip stocks, conservative bonds, exactly what they'd expect. But as I clicked through to the next screen, the room temperature seemed to drop another 10 degrees. Private equity holdings, venture capital investments, and most importantly, a substantial block of shares in Shaw Industries, purchased quietly through a series of shell companies over the past 5 years. What is this? Uncle Robert's voice had lost its condescending edge. My portfolio, I said calmly. The one you apparently missed while you were so busy monitoring my visible accounts. James leaned forward, his face paling as he recognized some of the companies listed. These are our major suppliers. I confirmed. And your technology partners. And your biggest distribution channels. I clicked to the next page. Oh, and this one might interest you, Uncle Robert. Remember that mysterious investor who's been buying up Shaw Industries stock through Goldman Sachs? The color drained from his face. That's impossible. We had our people check every buyer. Your people checked what I wanted them to see. I closed the laptop gently. My father taught me more than just wild schemes before he died. He taught me how to play the long game. You're lying, Katherine accused, but her voice shook slightly. There's no way you could have accumulated that much capital. I smiled, reaching into my bag for a folder I'd prepared. Remember that failing startup I invested in 3 years ago? The one you all mocked me for supporting? I slid the folder across the table. They were just acquired by Microsoft. For $8 billion. The silence that followed was deafening. My mother had gone completely still, her perfect posture frozen in shock. Aunt Margaret's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. I've spent the last 5 years building something, I continued, my voice steady. While you were all busy watching my decoy accounts, criticizing my questionable decisions, and planning to put me on an allowance, I was becoming your largest individual shareholder. Uncle Robert's hands were shaking as he flipped through the documents. Why? He managed finally. Why go through all this deception? I stood up, smoothing my simple dress. Because you never would have let me do it openly. Because you were so convinced I was stupid, reckless, incapable, just like you thought my father was, that you never bothered to look deeper. The board meeting, James suddenly said, realization dawning on his face. Next week. The vote on the new direction for the company. Yes, I confirmed. Interesting timing for this family meeting, isn't it? Trying to restrict my financial control just days before a major board vote. Uncle Robert took a step toward me, his face reddening. Now listen here, young lady. No, I cut him off. You listen. For 15 years, I've watched you run this company exactly the way you've run this family, through control, manipulation, and fear. That ends now. I picked up my laptop and turned to leave, then paused at the door. Oh, and about that allowance? I think we can table that discussion. I have a board meeting to prepare for. The last thing I heard as I walked out was Katherine's voice, barely a whisper. Dad, what just happened? I smiled as I stepped into the elevator. They had no idea that this was just the beginning. Monday's board meeting would bring revelations that would make today look like a minor family squabble. But for now, I had work to do. My father's legacy, and my own, depended on what happened next. In my car, I pulled out my phone and dialed a familiar number. Michael? Yes. Everything went according to plan. Start contacting the other shareholders. It's time for phase 2. The Shaw family had always underestimated me. On Monday, they'd learn exactly how expensive that mistake was going to be. The weekend passed in a blur of preparation and strategic calls. By Sunday night, my phone had logged over 50 missed calls from various family members, each one more desperate than the last. Olivia, darling, let's discuss this like adults. Aunt Margaret, you're making a terrible mistake. Mother, this isn't what your father would have wanted. Uncle Robert, that last one made me laugh. They'd spent 15 years telling me my father was a failure. And now they wanted to use his memory as leverage Too late. I sat in my home office, reviewing the documents one final time. The modern penthouse, purchased through one of my holding companies, offered a perfect view of the Shaw Industries headquarters. The same building where tomorrow, everything would change. A soft knock at my door interrupted my thoughts. "Come in, Sarah." My assistant entered, carrying a stack of folders. "Final confirmation from all the major shareholders. They'll support your motion tomorrow." I nodded, taking the folders. "And the press? On standby. The moment the vote is confirmed, they'll run the story." "Perfect." I stood, walking to the window. "Any word from Michael?" Sarah checked her tablet. "Yes, the auditors finished their review. Everything's documented, just as you suspected." I smiled. Uncle Robert had always been arrogant, but his arrogance had made him careless. The audit had uncovered exactly what I'd hoped it would: years of questionable transactions, nepotistic deals, and buried financial misconduct. My phone buzzed again. James this time. I answered, putting it on speaker. "Olivia, please," he started, his voice uncharacteristically humble. "We can work something out." "Can we, cousin?" "Like when you worked out having me removed from the executive training program." He faltered. "That was years ago. We were kids." "No, James. You were kids playing with your inheritance. I was building my own legacy." "The board meeting tomorrow." He hesitated. "What exactly are you planning?" "Guess you'll have to show up and find out." I ended the call and turned to Sarah. "Everything ready for tomorrow?" She nodded. "Car will pick you up at 8 a.m. Security team's been briefed. All documents are prepared." "Good. Get some rest. Tomorrow will be interesting." After she left, I opened my safe and pulled out an old, worn leather journal, my father's business diary. I found it hidden in his study after the accident, protected from the family's thorough cleaning of his belongings. Inside were detailed notes about every corrupt deal, every manipulated contract, every instance of Uncle Robert's mismanagement. But more importantly, it contained my father's true vision for Shaw Industries: innovative, ethical, forward-thinking. Everything the current leadership feared. "Watch me, Dad," I whispered, touching the worn pages. "Watch me finish what you started." Monday morning arrived clear and cold. I dressed carefully: charcoal gray suit, pearl earrings that had belonged to my grandmother, before the family had tried to deny me that inheritance too. Hair pulled back, severe and professional. The lobby of Shaw Industries was buzzing when I arrived. Board members, shareholders, and executives all trying to look busy while stealing glances at me. News had spread fast. "Olivia." Uncle Robert's voice boomed across the marble floor. "A word before the meeting?" I turned, facing him with a calm smile. "Sorry, Uncle. All communication should go through my legal team now." His face reddened. "This is family." "No," I cut him off. "This is business. You taught me that, remember? When you blocked my promotion? When you told everyone I was too emotional to handle client accounts?" He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Whatever you're planning, think carefully. You could destroy everything we've built." "You mean everything you've stolen?" I matched his quiet tone. "Everything you've manipulated and corrupted since my father died." Before he could respond, the elevator opened, and Michael Anderson stepped out, my father's old friend, and now my closest ally in the business world. "Olivia," Michael called out warmly. "Ready for today?" Uncle Robert's face went pale. Michael was not only a respected industry figure, but also the head of the regulatory committee that oversaw family-owned corporations. More than ready, I replied, watching Uncle Robert retreat hastily. The boardroom filled quickly. I took my seat, not in my usual corner, but at the head of the table, the position of power I'd earned through years of patient strategy. Before we begin, Uncle Robert started, trying to maintain control. I think we should address the recent developments in family dynamics. Actually, I'd interrupted smoothly. We should follow the agenda. First item: leadership review and vote of confidence. I nodded to Sarah, who began distributing thick folders to each board member. What is this? Aunt Margaret demanded, flipping through the pages. A comprehensive audit of Shaw Industries management over the past 15 years. I replied. Pay special attention to pages 47 through 52. The evidence of financial misconduct is particularly interesting. The room erupted in whispers as people began reading. Uncle Robert's face went from red to white to gray in the span of seconds. This is a mistake, he stammered. These transactions were all approved. By you, I finished. Using your position as trustee after my father's death, including the systematic devaluation of his shares that should have been held in trust for me. James stood up, panic clear on his face. We can explain. Sit down, cousin, I said quietly. The time for explanations is over. Now it's time for changes. I stood, commanding the room's attention. As the majority shareholder of Shaw Industries, I call for an immediate vote on the current leadership. The next hour was chaos. Votes were cast. Accusations flew. Uncle Robert tried to challenge the legality of my share ownership, only to be shut down by both legal teams. In the end, the numbers were clear. 76% in favor of removal. Uncle Robert, Aunt Margaret, and their entire leadership team gone. Effective immediately. As security began escorting them out, my mother finally spoke up. What happens now? I turned to her, seeing fear in her eyes for the first time. Now? Now we rebuild, the way Dad always wanted. The press release went out within the hour. Shaw Industries announces major leadership change. Olivia Shaw takes control in historic board vote. By evening, I sat alone in what had been Uncle Robert's office, looking out over the city. The same view he'd had while plotting to keep me powerless. The irony wasn't lost on me. My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. Your mother's downstairs. Should I send her up? I thought for a moment. Yes, it's time for another family meeting. Mother walked into the office like she was entering enemy territory, cautious, defensive, her designer handbag clutched like a shield. For a moment, looking at her perfectly coiffed hair and manicured appearance, I saw myself at 13, desperate for her approval, confused by her coldness after Dad's death. The prodigal daughter, she said, attempting sarcasm, but failing to hide her uncertainty. Satisfied with today's coup, I gestured to the chair across from me. Sit down, Mom. We need to talk. She perched on the edge of the seat, as if afraid to get too comfortable. I suppose you'll be removing me from the board as well. That depends, I replied, opening my laptop, on whether you're ready to hear the truth about Dad's death. Her perfectly composed face cracked slightly. What are you talking about? I turned the screen toward her. These are Dad's original business records, the ones Uncle Robert claimed were lost in the accident. Interesting how they showed up in his private safe, isn't it? Mother's hands began to shake. You've been in Robert's private files. I've been everywhere, Mom. In every account, every hidden folder, every secret meeting minute. I know exactly what happened 15 years ago. The color drained from her face as I continued. Dad wasn't being reckless with company money. He discovered Uncle Robert's embezzlement scheme. The accident happened the day before he was planning to take evidence to the board. No, she whispered, but there was no conviction in her voice. Yes, I said firmly. And you knew. Maybe not everything, but you knew something wasn't right. That's why you let them push me aside, minimize me, try to keep me from asking too many questions. Tears began to slip down her cheeks, ruining her perfect makeup. They said they were protecting the family name. They were protecting themselves, I corrected. And you helped them, all while treating Dad's memory like something shameful. She stood abruptly, pacing the office. What do you want from me, Olivia? An apology? Confession? It's been 15 years. I want the truth. For once in your life, just tell me the truth. She stopped at the window, staring out at the darkening sky. Robert, he told me Alexander was going to destroy everything, that his investigation would bankrupt us all. I was scared. When the accident happened, she trailed off. When the accident happened, you chose sides. I finished. You chose them over Dad's memory, over me. I chose survival, she snapped, turning to face me. I was 39 with a teenage daughter and no real power in this family. What would you have done? I stood slowly, walking to stand in front of her. I would have fought, like I've been fighting for the past 15 years, like Dad taught me to. Silence fell between us, heavy with years of unspoken pain. The investigators will want to talk to you, I said finally. About what you knew when you knew it. She nodded, suddenly looking old. And if I cooperate, then you can keep your board seat, under supervision, but your days of blind loyalty to Uncle Robert are over. As if on cue, my phone buzzed. A news alert. Shaw Industries scandal deepens. Former leadership under criminal investigation. It's really over, isn't it? Mother asked, reading the headline over my shoulder. Their version is over, I corrected. Mine's just beginning. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of change. The criminal investigation into Uncle Robert and his associates expanded. James and Katherine fled to Europe, their assets frozen. Aunt Margaret had a very public breakdown at the country club. But more importantly, Shaw Industries began to transform. I implemented the innovative strategies my father had outlined in his journal, opened up leadership positions based on merit rather than family connections, established an ethics committee with real power. The market responded enthusiastically. Our stocks soared. New partnerships formed. The press dubbed it the Shaw Renaissance. 1 month after the takeover, I sat in my office reviewing quarterly reports when Sarah announced an unexpected visitor. Send them in, I said, not looking up from my work. Hello, Olivia. I froze at the familiar voice. Uncle Robert. Looking decades older, his confident swagger replaced by defeated slump. You're not supposed to be here, I said calmly, pressing the security button under my desk. I needed to see you, to understand. He gestured vaguely at the office at me. How did we not see it? I leaned back, studying him. You saw what you wanted to see. A quiet girl who wouldn't cause trouble. A convenient scapegoat for your schemes. Your father, he started, then stopped. Alexander would be proud. Don't? I cut him off sharply. Don't you dare speak about my father. Security arrived, ready to escort him out. One last thing, he said as they took his arms. Was it worth it? Destroying your family for revenge? I stood, walking to face him. This wasn't about revenge, Uncle Robert. This was about justice. For Dad. For every person you've crushed under your power games. The family destroyed itself. I just exposed the rot. After he was gone, I opened my father's journal again, turning to the last entry he'd written before his death. To my dearest Olivia, never let them make you doubt yourself. True power isn't in controlling others. It's in staying true to your principles. They may call you weak now, but someday you'll show them what real strength looks like. I believe in you always. Tears blurred my vision as I traced his handwriting. We did it, Dad, I whispered. We finally did it. My phone buzzed. A text from Mother. Dinner tonight? Just us? I hesitated, then replied, Yes, we have a lot to talk about. Looking out over the city, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't known in 15 years. The Shaw family would never be the same. But maybe that was exactly what it needed. The quarterly board meeting was scheduled for tomorrow. The agenda included finalizing the company's new direction, appointing a fresh leadership team, and establishing the Alexander Shaw Foundation for Business Ethics. They'd called me stupid, incapable, too weak to handle money. Now they called me CEO. But more importantly, I could finally call myself my father's daughter, proudly, openly, without shame or doubt. And that was worth more than all the Shaw family millions combined.